The city of Wilmington, Delaware is the most dangerous small city in the country, topping national lists for violent crimes, sex crimes, and murders. But now there's a new chief in town. How does he plan to keep this city safe? That's our topic today as we sit down with Wilmington's new police chief, Bobby Cummings. This is the Delaware Way. Hi, this is Larry Menti. Welcome to the Delaware Way. Do a Google search and put in Wilmington and crime, and you will see it at the top of the list of the most dangerous cities in America. As a matter of fact, a couple of lists call it the most dangerous small city in America. And now the man who has been called in to help clean that up is sitting with me here right now. The new police chief of the city of Wilmington, Bobby Cummings. First of all, sir, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Larry.
Congratulations on the job. However, I'm not sure there's a whole lot of people that would want that job, although I heard there was 50 applicants. So yes. You have a monumental task ahead of you.
That's correct.
Your city has the distinction, and you grew up here.
I did.
You came up through the force.
Yes.
But now it is on your shoulders to try to bring down those crime statistics.
Yes.
What's your plan?
Well, we have a plan that calls for us trying to rebuild relationships and rebuilding strong communities. That's a major component of what we need to do. When you have a community where there's not a lot of trust in the police department, not a lot of trust throughout the city, the first way you attack that is to rebuild those relationships. And we're doing that by getting out in the communities, getting our officers out of the cars, back on the street, again, and reintroducing themselves to the community. And then as a command staff, we're also out in the streets during the evenings, walking around the different communities where we're having a lot of violent issues. So again, it comes back to reestablishing relationships in the communities and the level of trust.
Let's take an example. Just recently, just within the last couple of weeks, a woman is walking out of a convenience store, a corner grocery store, stray bullet kills her. How does helping with community relations stop that crime?
Well, the relationships really doesn't stop that crime, but what it does is it gives you more information about what's happening. It causes people to understand why they should not be doing certain things in a particular area. A lot of that's going to fall back to what a lot of people have been saying, education, jobs, the fact that there are people who are in the community, again, who see no hope and that's for them. So building relationships again and getting that level of trust just comes back to getting people to understand why they need to be neighborly again. And like you said, it's not going to be an easy task, but it's something that we're geared up to do.
Right, when you talk about education and you talk about the economy and you talk about all of those factors, and nobody would argue that those aren't factors that contribute to crime, they're all long-term.
Yes.
I don't think you have long-term, do you? I mean, you've got it on you right now to fix this, no?
I do, yes.
So how, is there something aside from just, do you need more men, for instance?
Well, more officers would obviously help. However, that's not the answer because, again, you can have 1,000 police officers. It's what goes into the community.
But you don't have 1,000 police officers.
No,
How many
don't.
do you have?
We're authorized 320.
320 for the problems you have doesn't seem like enough. Do you need more than that? Could you use more than 320? I mean, if you, in your perfect world, how many officers would you like?
Well, if I had about 370 officers, which is about 50 above our authorized strength, it would allow us to do some deployment kind of operations where we could have a long-standing homicide unit that can investigate some of these crimes. However,
let me just stop you for a
yes.
second. You don't have a homicide unit?
Not one that stands alone, no.
You're the most violent small city in America and you don't have a homicide unit?
I would say by per capita numbers, we're listed to be that. And again, perception goes a long way into what people think. And when you're just looking at numbers alone, it says that we're the most violent. But I've grown up in this city all my life, and I would not trade this city for any other location in the United States.
No, I understand, and I want to stay on this for a moment. And obviously, you're not you just took over. So
yes.
Well, let's keep pointing out you just got into the job May 30th, and you are assigned with the task of trying to fix this.
Yes.
So here you're assigned with the task of trying to fix this, and you don't have a homicide unit. You want to stop murders in a city, and you don't have a homicide unit. That, to me, and to most outsiders, would seem unproductive at best, ridiculous at worst.
Well, I kind of disagree with that, because a homicide unit is going to be investigating crimes that have already occurred. What we need to get to is a level of preventing crimes before they happen. So we have a deployment strategy where we've divided our city up into 3 parts, where we have commanders that are in charge of certain areas of the city, and they're giving lieutenants who also work with them with a core set of officers that are responsible to one particular area. And as a commander of a particular area, you have the responsibility to know what those occurrences are that are happening in the area. You are expected to know the residents, the businesses, any kind of special events that are going within the area. So when you are responsible for one particular area, you have your finger on the pulse of that community. And that's how we divided out our city.
I understand that.
Yes.
But if you're going to commit crimes in the city, and violent crimes, and you know there's a good chance you're not going to get caught because there is no homicide unit, that does hurt, wouldn't you say, in preventing homicides?
Yes.
So in a perfect world, you should have a homicide unit.
A homicide unit would help, yes.
Where would you get that money?
Well, part of that would come through being authorized to increase our strength. The monies would come through either city coffers and or state. And then obviously there are COPS grants that come out from time to time that we're able to hire other officers. However, those COPS monies, again, they die off at some point. And then the city would have to be in a position to maintain those officers through their own coffers.
Because, as I just said a moment ago, at the worst, I think this is ridiculous. And so what I want people to know is who they have to call, what they have to do, because it seems outrageous that you're put in a position to try to stop the violence in the city, and they don't give you the resources to do it, and you don't have a homicide unit in a city that has a problem with homicides. So when you want to get authorization to increase your force, who do you go to, or who should people call to make certain you have the resources for that?
Well, when I request resources, it initially goes to the mayor's office.
Okay, so it's the mayor that should be able to say to you, and by the way,
yes,
I would believe that the #1 responsibility of the mayor of a city is to keep it safe.
Yes, public safety is #1.
So I'm not going to assume that he doesn't want to do this. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and
yes,
think he's going to say, hey, that's a great idea. We should have a homicide unit. Let's increase to 370 would be good?
Yes.
So you're understaffed even with the authorized number, but you're understaffed even, you could have 320, you're still understaffed.
That's correct.
It comes to the point where it doesn't seem like you would be able to do your job effectively because they're not giving you the resources to do your job effectively.
I mean, you can say that in a sense. However, it's like any job that you have. You take your resources that you do have and you try to be most efficient with what you're working with. And I think we have a good group of officers that are capable of doing their jobs. But like you say, anytime you can add to that only helps. I've
interviewed a lot of police chiefs over the years. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they dislike about the job, once they get it, they like the police work.
Yes.
They hate the political aspect.
Again, that's a part of the job, the political aspect. I've not been one who come through my career in the political realm of the game, which I will call it. But it is a necessary part of what we do. I spend more time in meetings and meeting with different individuals and groups, making sure that we get the right information, that we get the right resources. But I guess that's what the chief's role is, to do these things. So you do step away from being an actual police officer on the street. However, what we do and what we've done with my staff is, because we're trying to build relationships, and we're asking our officers to get out of the vehicles and go out and talk to the residents and building relationships. We've done that as a command staff. So I schedule a couple days a week with my command staff, and we go out into the neighborhoods during the evenings, and we meet with our different residents throughout the city, because you have to feel a level of, #1, that we're not untouchable, that you have to be able to reach out to the police, and not just the police, but also the command staff. And we're out there making those ties. Because again, I know a lot of people around the city. I've grown up in just about every part of this city, and I know people out there, but they need to know that they can come and talk to you and they can reach out and feel you.
I also want to talk about some specific crime problems when we come back: heroin, gangs, and a police procedure that seems to have worked in other cities but is controversial: stop and frisk. When our conversation with Police Chief Bobby Cummings from Wilmington continues on the Delaware Way. Hi, I'm Larry Menti. We continue our conversation with the new police chief from Wilmington, Delaware, and I hate to keep saying it because it probably is like a dagger every time I say it, but it is considered the most dangerous small city in America, Wilmington, and I'll keep pointing out that you just took over on the job, so you have a huge task in front of you. If you had to pinpoint crime problem number one in the city of Wilmington, what would it be?
Well, right now we're looking at incidents of shootings.
And where's the problem there? Is it gangs?
Well, there are some loosely affiliated groups. I would not necessarily say they're gangs. We have identified individuals who, because of where they grew up, they hang out together. Some of them have little street names, but in terms of an actual gang, when you look at the definition of it, I don't think they meet that criteria. And then again, they are loosely affiliated around the drug game and the drug environment.
So what is the definition of an actual gang?
Well, a gang, they have basically like charters. They have rules that are set up that they follow. They have colors. They have tags that they use.
And a hierarchy?
Yes, and they have a hierarchy system. And our guys are just more loosely affiliated individuals where they come from a certain segment of the community.
Almost a wannabe gang.
Yes.
You quickly put together gang. The guns that they're using, are they legal or illegal?
They're mostly illegal or stolen.
Now that brings me to stop and frisk.
Yes.
Because stop and frisk has been used in Philadelphia. It went to the courts and they've amended it. Stop and frisk was used in New York, went to the courts, they didn't fight it. Stop and frisk was used in Chicago, they got rid of it. And in each one of those cities, except for Philadelphia where they did amend it, the crime rate went back up. And the shootings went back up because they weren't getting those illegal guns off the streets with that procedure. Are you a proponent of some type of stop and frisk?
I think there's a need to have, like you said, a proponent of it, so long as you're not violating constitutional rights and that you're using probable cause when you're conducting a stop and frisk.
Give me a for instance. You've stopped. Let's just say I'm walking down the street and it's 95 degrees out and I have a big army jacket on. Would that be probable cause to talk to me?
That's a little bit suspicious that you're walking around in the heat of the day with a big coat on. We're probably going to stop you and have a conversation with you, and that conversation is going to lead into the officer's safety and individual safety, and at some point we're going to pat you down to see if you have any weapons.
Let's talk about the drugs. Philadelphia, a lot of South Jersey is having a problem with heroin. I read an article recently where there was a major heroin bust here in the last few months. In an area, though, of the city they called Heroin Way. So it's a known area for heroin?
Yes, we do have areas that are known for heroin.
Well, my obvious question would be, if you know what the area is for heroin, why aren't there more busts in that area?
Well, we make busts every day in reference to heroin. Every single day we go out, you have people who are in possession of heroin, maybe a couple of bags. We're taking bundles off of individuals when we're stopping them. The drug unit is out there, again, every single day, dealing with someone who has heroin in their possession. And it's not just one area of the city. It could be in a couple areas of the city where we know what we call our hot spots. And that's the kind of activity that occurs in those areas. And again, we're in them every single day, and we're making arrests of some type of individual, either for possession and or with the intent to deliver.
It sounds to me like it is more than a local problem. That some of the police departments on their own won't be able to deal with this, and because it's interstate and it's going up the corridor, is the FBI involved in this?
Well, I can tell you there are federal agencies that are involved that we're in close contact with every single day. We don't do the policing alone in the city with just the Wilmington Police Department. Our state partners, our Newcastle County partners, the federal organizations, again, we are all in constant conversations and contact with each other.
You having a port, is that a problem?
I'm not going to say that nothing comes through our port, but we do have a customs agency and we do have port security that are on top of what's coming in and out of our port. Can something be missed? Obviously, we're all human. Yes, we can miss things sometimes.
We've been talking about this in every city, and especially on the East Coast, it seems like there's a real huge heroin epidemic. Are you getting a handle on it, or is it getting worse?
I don't know that we're getting a handle on it. We know it exists and we know what's going on. We're dealing with those individuals who, again, sell drugs and who are looking to be involved in that trade. We're making an impact, but we're not obviously by no means in a position where we're going to stop it.
And is it at the root of more violent crimes?
Absolutely. Drugs are definitely at the root of violent crimes.
Heroin specifically now?
Well, that seems to be the particular drug that is out there more prevalent right now. I mean, marijuana, cocaine is still out there, but again, the heroin has picked up a lot more than it has in the past.
Thank you, sir, for coming in. It was great to talk to you. I hope to talk to you again soon. And now to talk about the interview you just saw with Police Chief Bobby Cummings, we have a local legend, John Watson, who has been on talk radio in Wilmington for 30 years. He is now on WDEL. And I just read online a column that you wrote about crime in the city of Wilmington. So where do you think we're going? Bobby Cummings, good hire?
Good hire.
Why?
Absolutely. Why? Because he's been in the police force for many, many, many years. The people know him in the communities. The community leaders know him. So it seems to me the police chief was the #1 person everyone should have been in favor of. And what did I hear from the city council? City council members were saying, call somebody in from out of, call a new person in. Well, you call a new person in, they wouldn't know anything. They would have to learn the communities, where the hot spots are, what the community is, who are the community leaders, and so forth. They would have to get to know him, and while he's doing all of that, how can he do all of that and also fight crime?
He does. He's impressed me. He did seem impressive, but the task ahead to turn around these crime numbers, that's a monumental task.
I think he's the man who can do it. I think with the mayor and him together, they're going to do it.
Well, he needs a homicide department. I was stunned to find out that you have all these. Well, hold on. He has all these homicides. He doesn't have a homicide department.
I don't know why the mayor doesn't come on the line and say, yeah, I'm in favor of the homicide department, because a lot of people in the neighborhoods are calling for the homicide department, and I don't know why they don't have one.
He says he needs 50 more officers to get it up to 370.
They need 400 officers.
They need 400 officers?
They need 400. That's what I think. They need 400 people. Because you need, look at the crime rate in the city. You need more people. Maybe he needs more than 400 people. You need these officers out there everywhere that you can think of.
You seem to say in your article, and what I'm hearing in your voice right now, that the city of Wilmington is undergoing a crisis now. I never thought. I grew up in Philadelphia, just near here, and when I heard about Wilmington all the time.
Well, Philadelphia's a rough city too.
Philadelphia's a rough city, but I never thought Wilmington was. I never heard about crime in Wilmington. Now you got a problem, because every list in the country, you're #1.
We're number one crime. Yes, so, I'm surprised that people are not just leaving the city. People are still here. I don't know why. We should applaud the citizens in the city. The people in the city are staying here for their city. The problem is when a crime is committed in your neighborhood, you don't call the police and tell them who it was if you know.
Well, they're afraid.
But
they're afraid. There's going to be ramifications for that. There's going to be retaliation.
But they have anonymous phone calls they can make. They don't have to tell anybody who they are. You simply make a phone call, give the information, and hang up the phone. But one of the problems is, last year there was a woman who was called, and she passed on the information to somebody else, and people are. And that, of course, that makes people a little shy about making a phone call.
Is that the biggest problem right now?
That's one of the problems. One of the need to do is they need background checks. When you've got these people taking these phone calls, these anonymous phone calls, you got to have background checks on these folks that we can trust, and people are not trusting these people. That's the problem, and you can blame the city for that. You can't blame the community for that.
You've been here 30 years. So you've watched what's happened to this city.
And it was a much nicer city when I moved here.
What do you blame? What happened?
I was going to say I blame the community, but you got to place some blame on the mayor and the police as well.
The past mayor and police guy just got into office.
Not this mayor. You know what I think? Now, some people are going to laugh because I've written some columns criticizing the mayor and so forth. But in this particular time, this particular column was in favor of the mayor because I think the mayor is not being treated fairly. Every time something happens, well, that's the mayor, that's the mayor, that's the mayor. No, I think the mayor is a darn good mayor. I think he is. And I think because he was a police officer or detective for some 20 years and then he retired, I think that makes it. That makes him even better because he can work with the police department because he's been there and done it already.
Yeah, and you know what? I would think that as a former police officer, he would want a homicide unit.
I would think he would
I
too.
can't get off of that. I can't imagine that you don't have one.
I'm surprised I didn't write a column about that for WHYY because I blog for them.
Well, I'll tell you what, you write one, and then I'll write one.
Okay, fine.
I know you love this city, and it must just break your heart what's happening.
What I do. Yeah, otherwise I wouldn't. See, otherwise I'd be renting, not buying. So,
would you come back?
Because I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. And if something happens in my neighborhood, and I know something is going on, and I see who it is, I'm going to call the police, and if I can identify the person, I'm going to give the identification.
You know, it was a pleasure meeting you, and I do hope you come back another time.
It was a pleasure meeting you.
Now you are leaving.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
It was wonderful. Right. And we'll be back in just a moment with some final thoughts. I have a friend who was a police officer who asked me a deep and important question about police. He said, when someone is in trouble, they call us. People know we're going to help unquestionably, no matter what. So then why don't people treat us with more respect? Why aren't we beloved like firefighters? It's a great question. Do you know that the last time the FBI released its national crime report, violent crimes were at a 42-year low? That was for 2012. The statistics for 2013 are being compiled right now and will be released in September. Violent crimes are at their lowest since 1970. And the most violent year of 1991, from that year, violent crimes are down by almost 50%. The nation's murder rate dipped to its lowest since 1963. Now, you're not going to know any of that from the local news, who scares us with every shooting, every murder, with little or no perspective. You see, good news doesn't sell. You also wouldn't know from the local news that good police work and good cops made this happen. They made us safe. Every time a police officer does something bad, it's a lead story. But every day, police officers are doing heroes' work, and it rarely gets reported or noticed. You know, it's common to say thanks to a soldier for his or her service. They keep us safe and free. So do police officers, like my friend who asked why he doesn't get more respect. So the next time you see a police officer, why not say a simple thank you for your service to our community? They'll be the first ones to run to you in tragedy. Many have given their lives answering that call. The least we can do is say thank you. I'm Larry Menti.